Okay, we're recording. Okay, so this is our first ever energy update podcast. And I think we're gonna stick with the love light and a little less BS. I guess I won't say the swear words because I'm sure there's gonna be little ears around and stuff like that. But a love light and a little less BS podcast. And this is our energy update. So I'll give you guys a little bit of an introduction on who I am, and then I'll let Brittany do that for herself. Um, and I guess I'll tell you a little bit about how we know each other also. So my name is Brooke. I also go by Zen Momma Lightworker. That is my business name. And essentially, I've been on this healer journey for probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. And I've always been, I would say, somewhat intuitive. And I've always connected with spirit in one way or another. And I had, the little freaky incidents as a child where I'd see someone at the end of my bed and then I was scared of my wits kind of thing. But I spent a lot of my time really curious about the spirit realm, curious about crystals and their healing properties, and always just really up in the clouds. I spent a lot of my time up in the clouds and out of my body. And part of my journey has been connecting to Gaia, Mother Earth, and grounding out and also being up here so that I'm a little more balanced. Um, but that wasn't always the case. And every time I have 3 children, and that's the mama part of my business name, Zen Momma Lightworker. I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, all super magical little tiny humans. But each time I gave birth, I had a different form of awakening. And after my first daughter, I did actually, I had a little awakening. I got into Reiki, I studied it, I started card reading and things like that. And then I shut it down. I was like, nope, gotta go back to the 8 to 5 job and back into like the office work. My daughter went off to daycare. And then I had my second daughter, and during that pregnancy, I went through a lot of stuff. If you like, if I went through a dark night of the soul, I would say that is probably it, because it was a rough time for a short period of time. But there was so much growth and so much beauty in that. And then my major awakening was after her, and then just another little, I would say, another awakening after my son was born, but kind of on a different level. Like the awareness and the connection and the intuitive abilities and the psychic abilities were there. There was just an amplification after he was born, which is also beautiful. And then I currently, what I do, I don't even know, I'll try to summarize it, but really Lightworker kind of all encompasses it because I'm a quantum healer, intuitive coach. I love to work with conscious kiddos. I host like events, and Soul Seeds Holistic Wellness Show is a show that I put on as well. And I also I'm a psychic and a medium and just an intuitive overall. And so Lightworker really encompasses that really well because my overall purpose in this world, on this planet, is to help people, the planet, the collective, all the things. That's the overarching reason why I am here, to if we really narrow it down. So that's why we're kind of bringing this through for you guys. Brittany and I met at the beginning of my healer journey, really. And we have been working together in some form of another since then, literally, right? So I'll let Brittany explain a little bit about herself and her journey, and then we'll get started.
I don't know if I can top that. Okay, I'm Brittany. I have a business of Enlightened Within. I started pretty much when me and Brooke met my healing journey. It kind of just began. It was about 4 years ago, I'd say.
Mhm.
And it really was at the beginning a really chaotic time, and I knew that that was the beginning of my healing, but it was the best. I ended up being recommended to a medium who picked up of my healing intuitive abilities and never really knew much about Reiki, but she kind of brought it up for me to do. And so I decided on an impulse that I was going to go and get my master's in Reiki and start with this, and I absolutely love it. I went to Vancouver, which I never thought I'd do in my life. I went to, sorry, not Vancouver, but Victoria. Um, and then I started from there and worked through Brooke with so many courses and understanding that not only do I do Reiki, but I have other healing modalities that I incorporate with my healing business. So in my healing business, I incorporate what combination is required for that client. So maybe that client needs a softer healing, maybe they need more in-depth healing. It's whatever their soul can handle at that time. I do really enjoy working with the animals. So that's something I incorporate, but I'm always been, and I really currently am drawn to Mother Earth right now, as I know she's going through a big shift, and I know she needs that, um, that extra little bit of love and stuff from us as well, from as even as a collective. Um, a mother of two. I have two beautiful girls, one very high energy girl and one really nice and grounding girl. My husband, he is also an amazing support system in what I've been doing. He even is open to it for himself. He's been struck with a lot of health issues and stuff, but that is part of his healing journey that we're working through. So yeah, that's a summary of our life. It's really good. It's abundant in all ways, even through the tough things. So I just enjoy helping and advancing and lighting up the world in a way that I can.
Mm-hmm. And you do that very well.
Thank you.
Okay, so we didn't really like pre-plan. We're just gonna bring through kind of what the energy stream is bringing forward right now, the timelines that we're on. As many of you already know, we went through a very significant shift in the last couple weeks. Um, and a timeline shift actually. And this is something I've kind of talked about a little bit on my page. Brittany and I have discussed at length through Messenger and Zoom and all the things, but yeah, so we're gonna touch a little bit on that and the things that have been happening because of that. So we're gonna talk about first and foremost, the one that's a very hot topic right now. And I actually did ask a couple people, like, what would you like us to touch on? And this was one of the big ones that came up is illness. And then also alongside that, psychic attacks. So we're gonna start there, but we have a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot of. We'll see what we make it through and what feels good, but we have a number of things that we want to chat about with you guys just to give you an idea of what the energy is like right now and why. So first things first, illness. And Brittany and I are both kind of going through it. I'm at like the beginning stages, and Brittany is, where are you at? Hopefully getting better. And the
I'm at the back. I'm just
coming
at
on the
the
other
throat
end.
clearing part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's been in my chest actually for a couple of days, but it's like at night it seems to get worse. And then during the day I'm usually pretty okay. But today I'm like, okay. So essentially, there's a lot of reasons for illness that you can become sick. There are like really deep-rooted healing layers. If you're not releasing things, your body can manifest it into the physical. And you could get sick as a way to like release some toxins and things like that. There's also obviously things we put in our body that bring toxins into our body. That can also be why we get sick. We know that. And then there's also, psychic attacks. And that is one of the things that we want to touch on because it's very prominent right now and there's a lot of it going on. And Brittany really don't like, she's been tracking this kind of stuff as well too. I'm at the beginning stages of it. So Brittany, I'll let you talk on it a little bit as to how it's hit you and how you picked up that, okay, this is psychic attacks versus just your standard healing.
I've noticed it more in the family. There's been a lot of changes happening within our family. For me, I would say it comes through as definitely as like a self-sabotage more so. So it's like, oh, you're gonna do this, but there's that imposter syndrome that comes in. But I know this is like, no, like this feels really good. This feels like a really good thing I'm doing. But
Mhm.
there's like this, I'm like, okay, yeah, you don't belong here. Get out. So and then with that me pushing through, I found that's when my illness came on. It was like, oh, then fine, we're going to make you lose your voice so that you can't speak and just all those things, and it's like, hey, get out of here.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of that, but also in your dream state, I find they're really hitting in the dream state. um they did affect my daughter. I had to help her a lot when she was sick. That is something that we work through as a family.
Mhm.
But my husband as well, he's going through some big shifts, and in his dream state, there was a being that came in, and he said it had a very trickster energy to it. And it was pretty much saying, like, don't do this. You know, you're not supposed to do this. And I knew right away, and he did right away, his discernment, it was on high. And for him to remember in his dreams is pretty impressive, because a lot of times he can't remember it. He'll like wake up, remember it for that moment, and then it goes away. So he knew right away there was an off energy about it. And so he still knew that he should pursue what he wants to do.
Mhm.
So that's good. He had his discernment on even in his sleep state. So that's how they're coming through. So if you have a dream or these thoughts that are trying to dismantle you from the path you're going, and it doesn't feel good,
Mhm.
that's how you're going to know that something's in your field that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I would agree. When I've seen it, like even right now, even us planning this, like this has been in the works, guys, for a little bit, this doing this podcast.
Yeah.
We didn't really know 100% how we were going to bring it through or what we were going to do. We even had like a topic that we will end up touching on in future, that we had totally like talked about in depth. But then we're like, energy updates, they feel good because then we can flow with the energy. But even this, like for myself, well, Brittany also getting sick, losing her voice. For myself today, I got a little something going on, a little tickle. And even like I noticed that when people have big things, which everyone does right now, everyone's going through a shift to some degree, or close to a shift, or just ending a big shift, right? And like even for my daughter, who has a big, like she's in a musical theater production, and she's about to be like every night, late nights, and busy days and all this stuff, and she all of a sudden's getting hit with it as well. And so that's just how it's hitting. It's okay, you're doing something that's going to up level you, that's going to raise your vibration, that's going to bring you a lot of joy and a lot of abundance. We're going to hit you and just get you so that so that
Drop
it's
that
maybe
safety
not as,
blanket.
yeah, maybe not as enjoyable, maybe not as productive or whatever, right? And so the biggest thing with that is, and we will touch on, kind of how to navigate psychic attacks, 'cause they're a lot easier to deal with than you might think. And you also might be wondering, where are they coming from? And that could be a number of things. People can, like human beings, like someone can send you a psychic attack without even realizing it. And it's not necessarily going to be something malicious or even conscious. But it could be like a thought of, oh, that person's doing really well, or, I wish I was doing that well. And however things kind of come, or our thought can really form, like our words are spells, we say that, right? It can really send things into other people's fields, even having a thought about someone. And that's why even when I'm like driving the car and someone cuts me off, I'm really careful about what I let leave my field in regards to, because you don't want
We
to
need
push.
to work on that.
Yeah, most of us need to work on that. That's okay. But it's like we can really easily send junk into someone's field.
Yeah.
And that's how easy it is for us on a human level. But then we also have collective level psychic attacks where, we are really raising our vibration as a collective, helping the planet raise its vibration, right? And because of that, there are other beings, collectives that take an interest because they have their own agenda and really just look to kind of hit your field and make you feel not as good as, not peak, I guess you could say, right? And a lot of the times, what I've noticed with psychic attacks and the number of clients that I've worked with, a lot of the times they hit either as illness or as all of a sudden, like maybe not even an illness, but like a tickle in the throat. Like all of a sudden you're talking to someone and you're talking about something that's really important to you or just feels really good, or you're on track with something, you're tracking something, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, you're having a cough attack. Like, what the heck? I wasn't even sick. This happened to me not long ago too. There's also the like all of a sudden you get really hot and you're just really uncomfortable. That could be a number of things too. But in regards to psychic attacks, that's one of the possibilities. Intrusive thoughts. There's also anxiety type feelings like accelerated heart, just feeling nauseous and kind of yucky. There's lots of ways that psychic attacks can manifest in your field, and it can come from a number of different people, collectives, beings, sources, right? Um, the best way though, and I'll say how I like to deal with them, Brittany, if you have something different, let us know. But for myself, how I like to deal with them is I like to just acknowledge that, like, okay, there's a psychic attack going on in my field. I'm aware of it. And it just takes that awareness for me to really just clear it out. And it's the same for many people. So, okay, I acknowledge the psychic attack, and then I return it to sender with consciousness attached. And the reason for that is it's not like, oh, I have anxiety, I'm sending you back the anxiety or the nasty thoughts or whatever it is, right? What it is it basically takes that seed and it plants it in that person's field as like, hey, this you let this stuff out, you sent this to someone, this is the awareness on what you did and kind of how to navigate it, and it gives them an opportunity to work through it and heal through it or whatever they need to do, right? Work through a trigger potentially. So it is an opportunity to heal. And other times, when it's like a collective level, or another collective has sent it into your field, then it's more of like just an acknowledgement. Okay, this is a psychic attack, bumping it out of my field. You can like sweep your field out, you can cleanse, you can use incense, you can use Palo Santo, sage, whatever feels good for you, and just kind of bump that lower vibrational energy out of your field. What do you like to do, Brittany, for that?
That's pretty much the exact same thing. Usually it'll take me a little bit, and then all of a sudden be like, why the heck is this going on? And then as soon as I ask that, I know right away.
Hmm.
So once again, I do the same thing. I send it back to the sender. Now, the only different, like, and I won't go into depth with that because that's another probably conversation to have, but I do a lot of, if I know that there is a chance that they're coming through, I'll do a lot of gridding in my home.
Hmm.
So I'll do a lot so that it's kind of like, okay, so they're amplified right now, so I'm going to do some gridding and do some major cleansing in my home,
Yeah.
just so, and as, because I'm aware of it, but my children are so open to it.
Yeah.
I really go and really like fortify their rooms for a lot of protection because they're going to go to the easy source, which is
Yeah.
most likely our children.
Oh yeah.
So I guess for me, it's like, without going too in depth, that's the extra precautions I would do if I notice that psychic attacks and all that are amplified, especially on a collective scale. Then
Yeah.
I'll go in and I'll start gridding the girls' rooms and really
Hmm.
doing my symbols and stuff like that I do on their rooms just to give them a better sleep state so they can rest and be ready for school the next day and not be an emotional basket case because
Yeah.
something's been messing with them.
Which, like, we are experiencing a collective level psychic attack. And actually, this is something we've kind of discussed this a little bit, but my kids are getting major hit right now. Not only with like because we did again last night, we experienced another significant shift in vibration. And so like we experienced that shift. And then my son didn't sleep last night, like barely at all. And my girls slept really well, but they have been struggling with like emotional stuff. Like they'd come, and I mean, school is something, right? If your kids are in school, or even just if your kids are around other children at any point, it's easy for them to kind of pick up things, and lots of children absorb things really well when it comes to emotions and don't 100% know how to work with their empathetic field and stuff like that, right? So they get home from school and they are feeling some type of way, but it's been major amplified in the last little bit, and just almost feeling like really overwhelmed and no control of their field and their emotions. And that is part of this psychic attack and how it's affecting them. Whereas you and I, and those who might watch it, might have the ability to put up like a protective barrier on our field, which is something that I might recommend with psychic attacks coming up. But it's more just the awareness, guys, that it's a possibility and that it's amplified right now, and just having your discernment on high. But with our kiddos, it's a lot different. Whereas we need to kind of help them navigate that and let them know, yeah, sometimes there's like some, the way I explain it to my children in this specific case is the energy is a little bit crazy right now, and so we do a lot of like releasing. So for my 4-year-old, who is quite grounded in nature, she's quite connected to Mother Earth versus galactic and things like that. So she is much more called to earth-based things, but she is also into crystals. So she has like a red jasper, which is a very grounding crystal, underneath her pillow at night, and she's had no nightmares, which is so great since we've done that. And then, but after school or after daycare for her, when I pick her up and she's very emotional, um, she will hand me, we call it like, okay, hand me your miserable. And so she'll hand me her miserable. And then we talk about the process of releasing it. And they like to release it in different ways, sometimes to the sun, burn up the energy, bring back new energy kind of thing. But, yeah, so we navigate it like that. Sometimes it's just like screaming. Like sometimes like, can we just scream? And then we like
Mhm.
all do a big scream together. It's just like a way of releasing it and being like, okay, let's just get this crummy energy out of our field, kind of thing.
That's funny because that makes sense why yesterday I'm out feeding horses and my kids are running around and all they're doing is screaming and yelling. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why are we yelling? But they are outside and this is a perfect way to release because they're out in Mother Nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another part I wanted to that's been popping up in my head too, that's really prominent in our house too when the emotions are high,
Yeah.
especially like you said, my girls are very emotional right now. So they're
Yeah.
definitely taking on and absorbing quite a bit.
Yeah.
Baths. They have been going frequently in baths. The
Yeah.
water's really cleansing. And the other one that's coming in is food. Make sure your kids are having a really clean, wholesome foods
Yeah.
because it's going to keep their frequency at a really positive high level. And
Yeah.
if you're giving them junk food and all the sugar, like we're going right from Halloween
Yeah.
straight into Christmas, it's all sugar and candy overload.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anything good for your
And
soul
the
or
dyes,
yourself.
there's a lot of disruption. Yeah, like a lot of kids right now are going also, this doesn't help with their fields, are going through a major detox cleanse from
Mhm.
Halloween stuff because most of the kids now have wrapped up most of their candy at this point,
Yeah,
right?
we've chucked
And
it all out.
yeah, they always have like a little bit left, and then I'm like, where'd the candy
Yeah.
go? Oh, we threw it in the garbage. But yeah, so it's like avoiding like processed sugars, dyes, and processed foods of any sort are best right
Yeah.
now, especially in the midst of psychic attack and also significant shifts. And we had a big shift in the last couple weeks, and we're going into another massive shift
Yeah.
um coming with winter solstice. So
Yeah.
we have that. Is there anything else that you want to touch on with like the illness and the psychic attacks? Or should we move
Just
on?
trying to think. Yeah, no, it's just some certain distractions going on too right now.
Yeah.
But I think that has to do where that's what we're going to touch on with healing here, with the healing layers.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is. Okay, so well then let's talk a little bit. I really want to touch on some of the distractions in the sense of um like government things going on in the US
Absolutely.
in regards to like,
Well, that's affecting
cookies
us.
and
We
things.
already know that.
Yeah, I do want to touch
That's
on
part of the
that.
psychic attacks.
Yes, that's part of the psychic attacks. Absolutely. Okay, well then let's blend into that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot obviously going on in the States. There's a lot going on with the the discovery that there's aliens in our ocean. And this is part of it is distractions. Absolutely. Part of it is just simply distraction, but part of it is also priming, right? And that's like we want to like drop these little things too that you're probably not going to really take super seriously, but then also it'll make you think a little bit about like connection. And we already know, and I've been talking about this for some time on my business page, and we've talked about this, Brittany, that there has been a lot of priming in like dream state. There's been a lot of connection with however you want to call them, ETs. I don't know. What do we like to use? I don't
I
know.
like to call
I
them
call
my
them
spirit
beings,
guides.
but
They're
yeah,
there for
spirit
guidance.
guides. Yeah, yeah. Different levels of the spirit guides, yeah, for sure. So, there's been a lot of priming and there's been a lot of connection in dream states for a lot of people. And then there's also been a lot of people who are starting to actually see things like with their physical eyeballs instead of their clairvoyance. Um, and there's a lot of that going on. And so we are in a state of priming and but some of it is really just distraction.
I think the key words to say right now too would be keep an open mind. Don't be
Yeah.
closed off,
Hmm.
but also know to use your discernment.
Yeah.
If what someone's saying is like, "Oh, that kind of feels right but feels off," pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because that's your intuitive side saying, there's a partial truth but not full."
Yeah.
It
Yeah, your
doesn't matter who.
discernment. Our discernment right now should be at like on high regardless, and it probably will
Yeah,
stay
for
on
sure.
high now. We're just gonna
Yeah. You
continue
just have to
improving
be.
our levels of discernment. Um, because not everything is true, and like I said, a lot of it is distraction anyways. It might not even be part of your journey to acknowledge these kinds of things. If it's distracting you from what you're meant to be doing as part of your overall purpose and your missions, then it's probably just a distraction for you and nothing more to it. However, for some, there'll be codes. This will actually help activate a new awakening amongst a lot of people as well. So there's reasons for it, and there is positivity to it for sure. Um, and there's a lot of other like channelers and psychics who bring forward like, okay, we'll be connecting, like there'll be open contact in this kind of conversation. And they'll give you like a time frame and stuff, but it's all based on how we move and what society and human beings decide as we go. If you ask my daughter, she's like without any question of anything. She just said yesterday when we asked her, I was like, "Oh, do you think that, we're gonna have connection and when?" And she's like, "Winter solstice." She literally said winter solstice. I was like, "What? What in the where did that even come from?" So I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool. But that girl has been, connecting with spirit guides for a long time, so she would know better than me probably. Yeah, so it's just all about using your discernment. And with everything going on in the world, really, like been a lot of obviously like uproar and a lot of feelings about the US and their election and things like that. But the most important thing and that's why we're receiving a lot of psychic attacks, guys, because that was, regardless of your feelings on who was a better choice or who should have won, seriously coming from completely neutral space, that was for our highest potential timeline. We right now are in a really good timeline. Not to say it's going to be easy. No, it's not going to be easy.
No.
But it is where we needed to go to see the shifts that we want to see to evolve as a collective, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And for those of us who feel one way or another, those are just layers for us to work through to help us, open up, gain awareness. Um, and it's going to end up being to everybody's benefit at this point. It really is already. But yeah, so that's why we're also seeing these large scale psychic attacks, because we are shifting as a collective, the biggest shifts we've had in like close to 100 years. It's significant. Do you have anything you
With
want to add on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say with those shifts happening, there's a major call to once again, this is me connecting with Gaia.
Mhm.
There's a major call that so our base root chakra is connected to Gaia, and that is our security, that's our foundation, that's our safety or our support, I guess. We need to really be out there and connect with Mother Earth and Gaia right now. It's really crucial because that is right now it's with the changes and the shifts, we need to stay connected
Yeah.
because we could go on a spin if your shift and your healing layers that you're going through are sending you on a spiral and you can't grasp what's going on. Get outside. Like being outside is your most important, or at least if you can't get outside because it's cold out, have a bath. It'll bring you, ground you, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I can get back, to what I need to, where I need to be so that I'm able to sift through what's going on. Because I can see certain people are going to have a hard time with these shifts and changes happening.
Mhm.
And with that, I encourage them to go outside if it's nice out or just even sit in the sun. Sometimes some people just need to sit in the sun. I just like to sit in my window right by my patio door here and I'll just sit in the sun.
Yeah.
And it's nice. Anything that you find will bring you peace, whether that's singing to just petting your dog too, but make sure that you're not passing that on to your dog. Make sure you let your dog release that stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just really ground yourself. Find a way that grounds you. Some people it's breath work, other people it could be meditations, right? It doesn't really matter as long as you can don't escape it, just ground.
Yeah.
Just find a just help yourself through the shifts because what we're going to go through is going to feel to some maybe a little stressful, but I really know that all is exactly the way it's supposed to be and we are going exactly in the direction we need to go. So
Yeah.
whatever affects me, I know that it is for my highest good and that it's somewhere that it's some layer that I need to pass through and acknowledge and move through. I'm
Mhm.
not I have full trust in what's coming through, so for me, I won't go into those spins,
Yeah.
but that's why I encourage the ones that might have that uncertainty and are scared of trusting the process,
Mm-hmm.
ground. Kind of
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
find a
I second the baths. I'm a huge bath girly. I'm like in every night, and if I don't, I know it. I feel it. So yeah, I
yeah,
second that for sure. I have a Gaia connection meditation that if anyone wants, they can also reach out to me.
yeah, that's a
Message
good
me,
idea
email me.
too.
Yeah, I do love that one. And then you could just use it as you need, really. But then you
Yeah.
also just have that ability, like it's also a little bit of an activation. Then you also just have that ability to connect whenever you want to. And I also like I work with Gaia a lot, Brittany as well. And I love to pull cards with her and she actually helps me determine a lot of what my journey is here on Earth because Earth is our home right now. Like this is our home. And being here, there's so much advantage in all areas, right? And in everything, mind, body, soul. But one of our most beautiful gifts here is that the goddess of this planet is absolutely willing to help you thrive. Like that's what she wants
Yeah.
because she also wants to thrive. And
Yeah.
we're her best bet at this point. So so yeah, that's a beautiful connection that you can kind of hone in on if
I
you're
got to tell an interesting story about that connecting.
yeah.
So, I had a course I did this weekend, and there was a lot of downloads and codes coming through, and we were all like really vibrating high with just the energy.
Mhm.
And so the the mentor of the course, she's like, have a bath and go outside and ground, drink plenty of water, like all grounding things. Eat chocolate if you want. That's really grounding.
Chocolate is really
um,
good.
yeah, so I went and of course I had the chocolate. I went outside and was with the horses and just doing that grounding, but then I came in and I got distracted because I was gonna have a bath, and all of a sudden, me and the kids started making crystal bracelets. And I was telling my girlfriend about this, and she's like, "You know that that's another way of putting your codes in to your bracelets." She says you were
Mhm.
finding a way to transmute what you had and putting it into those bracelets. So she said, "No, you didn't have your bath, but you put it into what you're working on." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I didn't think of that." And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
So that being said, if you don't have that bath and you're drawn to do something different, go and create. That's another way of form of grounding. If it's
Yeah.
something that just calms you. And it totally did. My head pressure, everything that I had completely went away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
lovely.
That this past weekend, that head pressure, it was there. But that's how you know you're exchanging codes and you know you're integrating some stuff, which is all it's always a positive. Always a positive
Yeah,
for exchanging
always.
codes and integrating. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I and you're working with crystals. You can't go wrong with grounding when you're working with crystals.
Never.
Exactly. Okay, why don't we touch a little bit on the relationships and things like that? Because this was one of my big things. Like this hit me the hardest. Something like this has hit me in a long time. So, essentially we're going through like in regards to healing, if we want to pick a really specific area of healing that most of us or many of us are kind of working through some things, it is within relationships. And surprisingly, not necessarily like super deep rooted relationships. However, they are also experiencing this, but we're seeing this a lot more so in like connections that are more surface level, like acquaintance style or newer friend or newer connection, newer relationship style connections. Those ones seem to be hitting the most. And that is I'll kind of explain a little bit from my perspective and then also from some connections that I've had with others as of late. Um, the mirrors is one of the things. And when we say mirrors, we're talking like something that you see in someone else that you don't love, or that triggers you that you actually do or contribute to or kind of resonate with in some way, shape, or form, right? So sometimes our connections, and especially one like newer connections, if you have a newer connection with someone and all of a sudden they're flashing these things at you that you're like, ooh, I don't know, that like that doesn't feel so good to me, but you had a different perspective of them just a day ago, then you probably want to look at what they're showing up for you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have something that you need to work through, but that is a possibility right now. That's something that I've seen quite a bit. Then there's also the idea of energy leaks. And this can also hurt your discernment. This can also cause illness. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Energy leaks in our relationships, which is basically an imbalance of energetic exchange of sorts in a relationship or friendship, right? So we're seeing a lot of that where if you know you're someone who you like to like give your all in any relationship, whether it's your spouse, your children, or the person you just met a day ago at a, like, you know, at an event that you're now forming a relationship with. If you're that kind of person and then you're not receiving the same, and by the way, this is not a wrongness of the person who's not giving the energy exchange back necessarily. Sometimes there's, you know, some yucky stuff there, but it's not necessarily an issue with them under providing. It could be an issue with you over providing. And that could root in so many things, right? That could be rooted in like savior, that could be rooted in martyr, it could be rooted in not receiving what you needed as a child or as an adult, right? And so you just want to provide, which is great until it's not filling your cup any longer. And then that's where we have that energy leak. And then you're drained and you're not receiving, but really maybe you shouldn't have put that much. Or maybe you're in the reverse of it and someone's giving to you and it feels yucky. Like maybe it just doesn't feel good and the relationship just doesn't feel aligned. That's not a wrongness, but that is something that's an energy leak for you. And then, you know, maybe you got to step back from that. So it's kind of like looking at our relationships with people, where our triggers are. Is this a mirror for me? If not, okay, is there an energy leak? Is there something that I need to address? Is there a way I need to pull back or set boundaries? Do I need to contribute more in this? Is there something I'm missing that I need to be providing? Um, and yeah, and so in the past, especially the past couple weeks, I've noticed, and still, we're still moving into it. It's just, it's part of a shift, kind of until we hit closer to winter solstice, where we're gonna see this carry through this relationships theme. We did, and like Brittany and I have talked about this, we did have a big collapse in the of the Akashic records. So we don't really have super deep rooted, really hard things to work through, especially in regards to relationships anymore. Usually it's like you have the awareness and you choose differently. You choose to end a cycle, you choose to integrate it, you choose to release it, and that's that. It's not like this whole big healing process anymore. It doesn't need to be anyways. So that's also something to keep in mind when you have these things coming forward, even if it's a newer relationship, but it's a karmic relationship or like a past life or soul family, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have like these really heavy major layers. For example, for myself, I'm that kind of person who likes to put like all of the things. Like I really love to make someone just feel like, you know, like they're spoiled and they're loved. Um, and that's it's totally rooted in my past. And so that was one of my healing pieces that I had in the past couple of weeks was, okay, you need to know when to draw the line so that you're not just giving your energy away and it's no one else's fault but your own, right? Like I was making the choice to go above and beyond, and I can't expect that in return. It also might not be in the other person's integrity, right? That's another thing, right? In relationships and what is an integrity for us versus other people and projections and expectations. So, how has that been for you? What have you, because you also had another layer to that, Brittany, that you were bringing through.
Oh gosh. I the boundaries thing is a really big thing right now. I've always struggled with boundaries, and even people coming into my yard or being around my property is a boundary issue for me. And I know that that is something that's mirrored back to me as where am I lacking boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
And so that always seems to get reflected. I'm like, geez, I thought I've set up good boundaries, but I do. But I have weak spots or energy leaks that drop that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be anything. It can be anything. It could be to the point of like, it could be an animal, it could be a person, it could be like a family member, it could be anything, it could be a job. And if you're constantly like, oh, I set a boundary there, but then something happens and you just drop that boundary and you go right back into it.
Yeah.
That's where I've caught myself is in certain situations. Um, Also, the other thing that I've noticed is the amp up of people being, so if someone is really in their masculine energy,
Mm-hmm.
there's a big flop, like, or not like a balancing that's happening right now. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, get out of like being in this masculine, I can do it myself, independent side and go more to a nurturing side, balance that out. So there's being a really big call to balance in relationships.
Yeah.
And people, like you were saying, people are going to go through their healing, and like you're going to have people talk to you and stuff like that, and you have to be open to it, but also have those healthy boundaries set, that you're not giving and giving and giving. Be a support system, but don't completely um let them take that from you, I guess, take suck that out of you, you know?
Yeah. Energy
I don't know
vampire.
how to explain it in the best terms, but
Mm-hmm.
I see so many people in community, collectively, to even family, that are going through a lot. And it's good to be a support system, but you also have to stand in your own integrity and
Yeah.
not let yourself kind of succumb to their pain and their healing.
Yeah. You don't have to
Does
take that
that
on.
make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but don't take it on, to put
Mhm.
it in simpler terms. So that's something I'm working through too, because when you see someone in pain, you want to empathize, you want to fix that. And that's something in my past that I've always done. I want to help people, I want to fix people. My husband being sick, I want to be the one to help him, but it's
Yeah.
not my place. My place is to hold space, be a support system, and let him grab his puzzle pieces and do the healing work himself.
Yeah.
Because
The whole thing, right? Because then if you take that from him and he can't work on that
he can,
healing piece for himself, that's kind of taking a little bit of his power. We
exactly.
It's such a balance and a like it's all just awareness, right? And we're not doing any of these things. Majority of us anyways are not doing any of these things maliciously or consciously. We're just
Yeah.
trying to help. And that's also how you know that you're likely here to help people or as a healer or as a helper of some sort, right? If you're like called to just help people and that, it doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with you. Boundaries are important, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That's
likely.
that empathy we have.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if you're watching this, you probably experienced that to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on at all in regards to energy update for this week?
The
Was there
only thing I've seen is some inner child healing. A lot
right?
of like
Yes.
shadow work or like traumas and stuff that might be because, like you said, we're releasing quick.
Yeah.
They're getting brought to the surface because we need to get rid of anything dense that is no longer serving us.
Yeah.
So any traumas, major healing pieces, if it comes up and you know it,
Yeah.
acknowledge it,
Hmm.
thank it for what it gave you, and grow from it. Don't sit in it, because then you fall into that victim piece,
Exactly.
and you don't have room to sit in victim.
Yeah.
So if you feel it, know that it was there obviously to teach you something,
Yeah.
and take from it in the best that you can, thank it and let it go, because
Yeah.
that is your healing piece. It doesn't have to be a full-blown healing session. It can literally be just like you said, acknowledging it and letting it go. If you
Yeah.
need to cry about it, absolutely cry. Like, do whatever form of release you need to,
Mhm.
but don't hold on to it.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing, and it's going to be really important leading up to winter solstice. Every winter solstice, there's a lot of healing pieces that need to be released before moving into that energy. But this one is like amplified because we are moving and shifting so rapidly as a collective and on this planet. If you've got the little things here and there, and a lot of our healings is surrounding, well, let's just be realistic. Like literally, probably 90% of our healing has to do with our relationships,
Yeah.
whether it's with ourselves or others, right? Like it just is what it is. And so that's why it's such a big theme coming up for people right now. And the more you fight it, the worse it's going to get, the harder it's going to feel. It's just like let it flow, let it happen. If something is not aligned for you anymore, let it go. Easier said than done, but that's part of the
Yeah.
process, right? So yeah, it is like Brittany said, you just have to be able to move through it. And if I was gonna like make a recommendation on when to do that, like I would recommend bringing your stuff to the surface to release before Christmas.
Yeah. Also, yeah, and to go with that inner child, I also believe that that's bringing up like that stuff's getting released so that can bring up that joy in you again because
Yeah.
so many people have suppressed that. Like our children, especially if you're a parent right now, are showing us if they're moody and stuff like that, start incorporating more fun games with them. Start connecting with them because they're showing you what you're lacking.
Yeah, and
So,
we're absolutely not meant to like stop being a child and then never playing that childlike energy. We are meant to be playing in and embracing that
that's your
childlike
creative
energy.
side.
Yeah, even if we don't have children, we are meant to be playing with that on a regular basis. It's all about balance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's that, the masculine and the feminine balance. There's all the components. Ultimately, we all require balance. That's
Yeah.
something I feel like we're all kind of striving for.
I'm always working through that.
Yeah, every blueprint that I've come across, there's some form of balance within it, that needs to be dealt with. But yeah, we're in a very interesting time. There is also like we could go into a very specific level of like, okay, like zodiac wise, there's like these people who are going to have a huge elevation, but really, we really only need to look at it collectively because we're all going through it. We're all going through it.
Exactly.
Some may be feeling a little bit more than others and in a little bit different ways than others, but ultimately this applies to everyone in some way, shape, or form. Or at least something we'll have within this. So it is just about really preparing for the next kind of layer of shifting we're doing in the next.
Yeah.
So
And like you said with the astrology too, it depends on what's in your chart and how it's going to
yeah.
affect you.
And
And
if you're plugged into it, if you're not plugged into it, it's also not going to affect you in the same way, right?
dang it, I'm plugged into it.
Sometimes
I
I'm like,
love it.
oh, I'm really plugged into this. And then if it's like, oh, I don't like that, unplug.
Yeah.
I don't like that one.
Yeah. I don't
No.
like what that's telling me.
Yeah. However, with the cardinal signs and the shift coming in the next couple days, I will gladly take that. I will
Yes, I will take.
gladly.
I'll take
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's like you decide what you take, right? Like you can
Yeah.
just grab that little nugget and,
Well,
integrate it.
it's your own reality. You create it how you
Exactly.
want.
Yeah, it is your own
Remember that.
reality. Yeah, and you choose what timeline to step into as well, right? And for us, and we were actually just talking about this before we started recording, we were like, okay, we're going to set the intention that whatever comes through is for whoever's watching the collective's highest potential timeline. And that's how I live my life. I know Brittany does that as well.
Yeah.
Like before bed every night, I'm like, okay, I set the intention that we're going to wake up in our highest potential timeline. And so far, so good. It might not feel like it. Like I really understand that a lot of people are going through it, but it's for our
My
highest
husband will do that. He'll say, I'm going to wake up in my highest potential timeline. Next morning, he wakes up sick. He's like, what the heck is this? I'm like, hey, I said, you got to release.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a prayer at night. Like that's the thing you say. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And
want the highest good in your life.
yes, and everything is happening for you, not to you. That's like my favorite thing. Everything
Yeah.
is happening for you, not to you. And that's where that victim, like if you're sitting in victim mode, and I understand it, we all end up in victim mode for a period of time when we're going through a thing, and that's totally fine. But it's that like prolonged visit with victim is that's where your detriment comes in because you can't grow, you can't evolve in that space, you can't heal in that space. Um and so the best thing for any of us that are feeling in that victim space is to release, let go, forgive, like seriously. And I know it's like easier said than done, but if you want to thrive, that's part of the process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Brittany is releasing right now too.
Oh, I've been releasing this whole call. It's been lovely.
That's perfect. Okay, well, I think we essentially touched on everything. There's one other thing that I was gonna touch on, and I will just briefly, and you can add to this too, Brittany, if you want, but I'm not gonna fully dive into it, is like we're gonna start to see some more with this illness, we're gonna see some layers of people passing and leaving this earth realm. And it's gonna seem like it's in a little bit more of an abundance. I just want to touch on that slightly with why we're seeing that. And just to give you guys an idea of kind of what is going on. And for some of us, it'll like bring us some peace and things like that, right? So Some of it has to do with the way that our planet is shifting vibrationally. This planet is not going to be aligned for some individuals anymore. That's okay. That doesn't mean they're bad people. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that vibrationally not necessarily aligned. But the big majority of it, guys, at this point, is that they have served their purpose in this life. They've done what they came here to do. They're not trapped here anymore by the Akashic haze, and they have the ability to move on and move on to their next big journey, right? So it's not like a negative in the sense, yes, we're losing our loved ones, and that's traumatic, and it's super, we feel it. And there is that you have to go through that process of grief and you have to heal through that. Absolutely. It is a real thing. Your emotions and your feelings are super, super real. Um, and that's the beauty of being human, but also knowing that you can always connect on the other side at to some degree. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but you can always connect. They're always there. Oftentimes our loved ones that are really close to us come in as guides to help us anyways, and there's just part of their next journey, right? Or maybe they're off to help some other whatever it is that they're going to do. We'll dive into all that stuff at some point. We'll touch on a specific topic and we'll go into that in depth, but we are likely going to see an increase in that, and especially over the next few months. And so just kind of having an idea of why that might be. If you're looking for a little bit of like, why am I losing all these people? Because I just had a connection with someone the other day where she told me she had lost 4 people in the last year. Um, and it is part of the process where these individuals who came here, they did big things, they helped us get to where we are now, which is huge. And then they fulfilled their purpose, and it's like, hey, I want to go on my next journey. I'm out. I'm leaving on vacation. Right? So, yeah. And what have you picked up on that, Brittany, in your experience with that too?
I've just started noticing how many more people have been passing. I've noticed a bit more obituaries again. Like it went on a lull there, it felt like for a bit.
Hmm.
And now I see it amping up again. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone. I'm saying that because I just have noticed it.
Yeah.
Um, but once again, same thing. They did exactly what they needed to do in this life
Hmm.
to get to this point. Really, when we think of, say, like our elderly grandparents and stuff that have lived through all of what they've lived through, it's amazing what they've gone through. And
Yeah.
in all honesty, the change that's happening right now at a soul level or at a physical level, they might not have been able to adapt to it either because of the amount of change that they've gone through. So
Yeah.
they knew that this was their time to go. And some souls, I know that there's some young souls too that have gone,
Hmm.
and they came just for a purpose. Maybe they were that light that needed to be shone on a specific family members and stuff like that to rate to bring in that healing to awaken them. Like some people sometimes leave sooner to awaken family to connect to the spirit side again, and because a lot of times when we lose someone and it's traumatic for us, it actually enhances our abilities to connect to the spirit world and then bring us back to our authentic selves and who we truly are,
Yeah.
because it's an awakening process. Some are here literally to, and it sounds, for our human experience, it sounds like, well, why would they do that? Like, why does it have to be like that? It's not, once again, it's not happening to us, it's happening for us.
Yeah.
And
This is
they
a
made that
growth
choice.
journey. Yeah. Hmm.
And something to remember that helped me, I know it's an animal, but what helped me with the passing of my one really close animal was they're there right beside you, like at this moment. If they're, you can just connect with them and they're
Yeah.
there, and
Hmm.
they're closer to you now than they were when they lived 4 hours away
Yeah.
driving to them.
Yeah.
So the spirit world is so much closer, so you're not alone, they're there with you, it's just you
Hmm.
don't see them physically.
Yes, and that's actually something I forgot that I wanted to chat about is the significant thinning of the veil, permanent thinning of the veil that's taking place in the next couple months as well. And I don't know if that is like I'm sure they coincide, like the deaths and the thinning of the veil, but there is also going to be it's going to be a lot easier for us to connect, to interpret messages and connections. Like it's all going to lighten, and it's going to become much easier because a lot of us are also amplifying our clairs, like our clairvoyance and our clairaudience and things like that as well. And if that's something that you want to develop further, that's absolutely possible. I know when I first started, getting in onto this journey and realizing that I was, able to hear and see spirit, and wanting to really like develop that and nurture it, I couldn't find very much that told me that I could do that, because it was like, well, you have the gift or you don't have the gift kind of thing, right? And I've been looking into that for a long time, since there was like those first medium shows when I was a little kid that I would see. And I was like, oh, I wish I had that gift. Little did I know, But anyways, so then when I was like, oh, I can develop this further. Yes, you absolutely can. If you are on the timeline where you're like, hey, I want to develop this further, you can develop it further.
Mhm.
Anybody, anybody, especially those who are called to this kind of thing, are able to develop their intuition further.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
ever let your ego get in the way and tell you you can't. You can.
Yeah. 100%. Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, do you have anything that you want to bring up, or like we covered it all?
No, I think that's really good.
Yeah, I think
Really
that's
good.
really good too. Okay, so this is our first ever energy update. And I don't know, I thought it was a blast. I thought it was a lot of fun. And it was
It
just
was really nice.
when I just looked at my phone before, it was 11:11. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. This is a good time to wrap this
Yeah.
up. Okay, so I love this. I think that I would like to do this again in the future. And I also have specific topics that I'd love to touch on.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I think that you can probably expect this somewhat regularly. We don't know when yet, but we'll figure it out. We'll feel the
This
energy
is
out.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if there's a big shift that happens, I think then we can really pop in again and
Yeah.
talk about that if we're feeling and be like, "Ooh, okay, we need to talk," because some people might need some help maybe navigating through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we could incorporate some things and stuff like little journeys and stuff like that as we go too. But yeah,
Yeah.
something to look forward to. I absolutely
Mhm.
loved it. So yeah, okay, so that wraps up our first energy update for you guys. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for being here with us and for watching this. And let us know if you have any topics, I guess, that you would like us to look at or touch on or learn more about, and we'll comment back or we'll do a podcast episode or something of the sort. Alrighty. Okay,
Thank you,
thank
guys.
you. Okay, we are good to go.